Good morning, everyone. Make sure your cameras are on, please. Cameras on. The only one that starts and it's always ready is Marta. She's like first one. Come on, you're second, like half an hour later. Anyway. Alright guys, make sure cameras are on, please. A few people fighting me. Nidia. Alexis, your buddy's funny. Jonathan sends me a message, sends a message in the group. Is like, is this the last chapter? I mean, the first chapter yesterday. I'm like, no, it's the last one. All right, you guys ready? Gonna talk about. Hey, Rose. Good morning. We're gonna talk about appraisals. Is ready for it or what? Yesterday we talked about real estate market, right? And today we're gonna talk about appraisals. Now these go hand in hand. All right, so these go hand in hand because for you to understand how to appraise something or estimate value, right, of something, you need to understand what the market is doing. And we talked about that again yesterday in the morning. Now, my question, or my first question to you guys is very simple. Yana, I should have given you an extra 15 minutes, right? Sorry. So my first question to you is, guys, what's an appraisal? Give me your best opinion of what an appraisal is. Best opinion of what an appraisal is. Zoomers, make sure you participate as well. Zoomers, everybody. Send you guys coffee because that coffee is not working. Diana says price. Appraisal is price. Juan says estimate value. Celine says what the value of your land is. Okay. You guys are, some of you are talking about real estate. I'm just asking what an appraisal is. House value, what a buyer is willing to pay and what the seller is selling for. Okay. Orphelia says valuation. Sinead says value. Martha says value. Okay. So you think an appraisal is value. That's what you guys are telling me. An appraisal is value. Or Celine says what the worth is. So value. In other words. But you guys think appraisal is that value. Let's see, Rose says an appraisal is lending value based on the actual price and market of previous sales. Kinda. Sam says market value. So you guys, again, we go back to this. You guys, most of you from what I'm seeing, you guys assume that appraisal is value. That's pretty much what I'm seeing here. Appraisal is value. the answer is a little off. There's something missing to it. I know, Juan, you already answered correctly, right? Everybody else, you need to understand this. Appraisal is not value. Appraisal is looking at something and giving your opinion of value. Okay? So appraisal is not value. It's an opinion of value. It's an estimate of value. It's a guess of what value might be. Appraisal is not value. Okay? So appraisal is an estimate of value. And because it's an appraisal, it's handled by a certified appraiser. And that's a little different from what we do, because what we do is an estimate of value. We don't do appraisals. We do an estimate of value. Okay? But it's still not value. And the reason why I'm saying it's not value is because the buying market, the buyers determine what value is, what they're willing to pay. And we're going to go over this in a little bit. So there's the price and there's value. The price is what they'll pay for it. But if everybody pays a similar price, then that establishes the value of a property, more or less, right? So appraising is a professional practice of estimating value. Professional practice of estimating value. All right? Appraisal is not value. So don't ever answer as if it is value. Now, what appraisal will help us do is figure out in real estate, what is real estate value? But one of the things I want to point out is, I don't have here, but I'll use this. Okay. So here's my phone. Right? Here's my phone. Do you guys see there's icons here? Do you see the icons? Right. So in class, usually it's a lot easier for me while everybody's in class because everybody's at a different angle. But my question to you is, when you're looking at it, do I see the same thing you guys see? I don't? Don't I see the phone? I see the phone, don't I? So I see the same thing you guys see. It's the phone. Because that's where we're estimating value, is the phone, right? What I don't see is the same perspective that you do. So because I have a different perspective, right, than you do, right, then the value is also different. So remember that appraising an estimate of value is merely an opinion. Now, again, the difference between appraisal and estimating value as a realtor is that in appraisal, they go through some certified or standard practices of appraising, right? So everybody pretty much follows the same pattern to figure out or determine value. So most appraisers will have a very similar value or estimate of value to what the phone is, right? Is worth. All right, but again, it's an opinion. It's not value. Because I can say this is worth $100, right? But for some of you, this might be worth $300. For me, it's worth thousands of dollars. Because everything I do is right here. You guys understand the difference? Right? So, again, appraisal is an estimate or opinion of value. Not value. It's an opinion of value. All right, so let's talk about real estate value. Let's talk about the foundations of real estate value. So the valuation of real property is one of the most fundamental activities in the real estate business. Its role is particularly critical in the transfer of real property, since the value of a parcel establishes the general price range for the principal parties to negotiate. Real estate value in general, is the present monetary worth of benefits arising from the ownership of real estate. So value is what we say it's worth today, right? Based on how much we're going to get from it in the end. What benefits do we get from it? What are the future benefits we get from real estate? Why would I pay $300,000 for a property today? Well, because of income, for instance. It's an income property, so it brings us income. Because over time, and I showed you guys this yesterday, that's how we ended the class, right? I mean, we started and then we ended the class. Over time, it increases in value, so there's appreciation. That's one of the benefits of real estate. the use, what we can do with the real estate, right? And tax benefits. If it's an investment, you can deduct a lot of stuff on that property. If it's a home where we live, then we can deduct the interest that we're paying on the mortgage. All right? But these are the main benefits of owning real estate. And people will pay a certain value, right? Or attribute a certain value based on these future benefits. Now, ownership of real estate produces income when there are leases on the land, the improvements, or on air, surface, or subsurface. Subsurface rights, I'm sorry. Such income is part of real estate value because the investor will pay money to buy the income stream generated by the ownership of this property. Appreciation is the increase in market value over time, right? The use of the property, whether it's residential, commercial, agricultural, recreational, etc., in large part determines the property value, and each kind of use has its own benefits. And depending on the current tax law, as I was saying, there's tax benefits from ownership of a property that may take a form of preferred treatment of capital gain, tax losses, depreciation, tax deferrals on tax liability. These tax benefits contribute to income and potential sales price of a property. All right. Now, under the foundations of real estate value, we have these basic economic principles. We're going to talk about supply and demand, which we talked about already yesterday, so it should be easy. Utility, transferability, anticipation, substitution, contribution, change, highest and best use, conformity, progression and regression, assemblage, and subdivision. So, supply and demand, you guys already know, so I'm going to go really fast. Supply and demand is, if there's too much supply, not enough demand, prices drop. If there's not enough supply, but there's a lot of demand, prices rise. That's it. That's how the market determines itself, and the economic values that things have are based on supply and demand. Utility, what you can do with it, right? So the fact that a property has a use in a certain marketplace contributes to the demand for it. The use is not the same as function. For instance, a swampy area may have an ecological function as a wetland, and it may have no economic utility if it cannot be put to some use that people in the marketplace are willing to pay for. Transferability, right? There's another value to this. If a property is encumbered, right? If a property is encumbered, meaning it has a lien against it, it has an easement, it has a license, anything that's against the property affects the transferability of being able to say, hey, Juan, here's the property, I'm giving it to you, right? Or selling it to you, and boom, we sold. There are certain things that stop us from doing so. And because they stop us from doing so, they also affect the value. The cloud on the title or limitations on the title affect the value. All right, the principle of anticipation. Anticipation. What is anticipation? When you anticipate something, you're expecting something to happen, correct? Anticipation. Well, when we buy real estate, there's two things we anticipate from it. Either appreciation or income. Or both, actually. Right? So if you have a single family that you live in, the only thing you can expect from it is that it will increase in value during the time that you hold it. Right? There's no income. It's just an expense. Expense, expense, expense. But over time increases in value. So you anticipate a gain in property value. Right? If it's an income property, then you anticipate that you're going to have rental income. Simple. And increase in value. Principle of substitution, very, very easy. Principle of substitution is, and guys, I'm going through some of these a little faster because they're very easy to understand. There's other things to focus on. But the principle of substitution is simple. Like, if I have two properties on the same block, and I mentioned this recently as well. I have two properties on the same block. One is green, one is yellow. The green one is $400,000. The yellow one is $380,000. Everything else is exactly the same. Would you buy the most expensive one or would you buy the cheaper one? Everything is the same. The only thing different is the color, the exterior color. Would you buy the $400,000 or would you save $20,000? Which one would you go for? The majority of the times, people will buy, right, the cheaper one. People pay no more for a property than a buyer would have to pay for an equally desirable and available substitute property. For example, if 3 houses are for sale are essentially similar in size, quality, and location, a potential buyer is unlikely to choose the one that's priced significantly higher than the other 2. And that makes sense, right? It's like going, I said as well, like Scott going to Kohl's or Macy's, right? And you see a shirt that's in display, right? It's on the shelf. You look at it, and the price tag is $100, right? And then you go to the clearance section, and you find something, right? Instead of the stripes being like this, the stripes are like this, right? Let's say. Very similar. The function is exactly the same. The quality is the same, right? Except the one on the shelf was $100, and the one on clearance is $50. Which one would you buy? Unless you really, really want to have the stripes like this versus like this, most people will go for the $50 because the utility is the same. It's still the same color, just different stripes or pattern, okay? But most people would substitute. What's up, Jen? Good morning. Most people would substitute. Make sense so far, guys? Great. Awesome. Contribution. All right, so contribution. Contribution is very simple. It's what you're putting into the property, right? What you're putting into the property, and how does that affect the value of the property, right? I had this conversation with somebody over the weekend, listing that we're getting, and I told the guy very simply, you could put $1 million into this property. That doesn't mean it's going to increase the price to $1 million or to 1.5. If the property's in the wrong neighborhood, it might not even increase in value at all. It might decrease in value depending on what you're putting there, because people are not, like, if you have the best house in the neighborhood, if it's like above the top, a lot of people look at it and like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not buying it, because then everything else, and we'll talk about progression and regression, everything else around here is so much cheaper that when will my property appreciate? When will my property increase in value? All right, so contribution is the degree to which a particular improvement affects the market value on the overall property. In essence, it says right here, hey Ruth, good morning. All right, in essence, people got nothing else to do. They're in my classes in the morning, classes in the evening, right? Make sure you're not watching my videos at 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody texted me the other day, well, yesterday, I'm sorry, saying, Bruno, I have nightmares already. I've been dreaming and of your videos on YouTube and this and that. I'm like, hey, listen, sorry. Anyway. But it's cool to see you guys on YouTube, and of course always you guys here on Zoom. But it's good to see people participating as much as possible. That means you guys really want this. That's awesome. All right, so back to this. In essence, the contribution of the improvement is equal to the change in marketplace that the addition of the improvement causes. For example, if we add a bathroom to a house, the house, it may contribute an additional $15,000 to the appraised value, right? Thus, the contribution of the bathroom is $15,000. Now, note that the improvement's contribution to value has little to do with the improvement cost. See, the foregoing bathroom may have cost $5,000 or $20,000, depending on what you're doing with the bathroom. But the general market says that an additional bathroom in the area will increase $15,000. So again, if it cost you $20,000, was it worth it? If it only increased $15,000 worth of value, right? So these are things to remember. That means it becomes a diminishing return, right? Diminishing return, where the costs exceeds the contribution. You guys got it? Right? Change. All right, so market conditions are in a state of flux over time. They're always changing. We talked about this yesterday. Just as the condition of a property itself changes. Now, these fluctuations and changes will affect the benefits that can arise from the property and should be reflected in an estimate of property's value. For example, the construction of a neighboring shopping center in the vicinity of a certain house may increase the desirability of the house's location, enhance its value. So yesterday we talked about, we finished with base employment, right? If there's industrial, if there's commercial, there's retail, right? Then there's jobs. If there's jobs, then people want to be as close to the job as possible. Therefore, if you have a house where it's being developed, if you've owned a house in an area that's being developed, what happens to the value of your house if now people are rushing in, right? House value goes up, right? So that's change. Changes in the geographical area where your property is located, right, will affect value. All right, highest and best use. This one's something to remember. Highest and best use. If I have a parking lot, right? It's just a parking lot. Is that the best thing we can do with land? I'm not even going to say where it is, because just think about it and let me know the answer. I have a parking lot. That's it. It's buildable lot, like I could build something on it, but my question is, okay, question is that the best thing that we can do with the property? Is that the highest and best use for the property? Let me know. Is that the highest and best use of the property? Jen, I don't know how to take that. While you guys thinking about the answer, Jen just sent me a message, says, I just remember I also had a dream presenting homes, and you were there. That part is great. What she says next is what hurts. Just a little slimmer. Do I look that bad? Just saying. I mean, certain comments we can just take it out of the way. No, everything else was great. I dreamt about presenting homes, and you were there. It was so awesome. Like, that would have been great. But then, just a little slimmer. All right, Sam says you can rent a parking lot for multiple cars. Well, those parking lot. My question is that the best thing I can do with the land? So, Sam, since nobody else has answered, okay, some people are answering, great. Sam, if I knock down your house right now, I knock down your house, it becomes a lot, right? Is that the best thing we can do with it? Sell it is the best thing we can do with it? Fascinating. Any idea, guys? Is that the best thing we can do? Let me know. What are your thoughts? Don't just say no. Give me your thoughts. Give me your opinion. Marta says depend on location. Okay. Rose says I think it's a good comment, and then commercial. It was a good comment until that moment. But anyway, commercial. Okay. Sam says I agree with Marta. Okay. Today says rebuild. Aha. And Zeline for the win. Oh, sorry, still here. Zeline for the win. Here you go. How about we have land, you're using it as a parking lot, but what you do is you still use it as a parking lot, but you build on top. So you could build commercial, for instance. You could build residential. Whatever it is that's in demand in the area. So I also agree, okay? I don't entirely disagree with this statement. Depends on the location, right? Because there's things we can do and things we can't do. So we got to know where we are, right? But in the middle of the desert, is a parking lot good? Is a house good? Is industrial good? That depends, right? If you're in the middle of a busy downtown area, maybe what we want is the parking lot, right? Is a parking lot and then commercial on top. Maybe that's what we want, all right? And then, no, build a big house. The best thing you can do is a big house. Anyway, so the point was the highest and best use, just like Marta said, and I agree with that, has to do to where the property is located. And what do you think for the area is the use that's in most demand, right? Or highest demand? Tiana, you don't have to take pictures, don't worry. This is being recorded, so it's right. Okay. Terrible. Like I've seen people like, you know, checking their phone. Tiana, no shame. Let me just check my phone. Anyway, all right, next. So highest and best use. Too much going on. I was checking cameras. You're all good. Don't worry. Don't worry. If anybody goes into your house, we can all see it. We're here. We got you. All right. Don't worry about it. All right. We got you. All right. So the next thing we have is conformity. What is conformity? What is something that's conforming? This is another thing that's key to every appraisal. What is something that's conforming? Forget real estate. But the word conforming, what does it mean? Conforming. Okay, we got 3 YouTubers. Come on, participate. Conforming. Anybody? Adjusting, adapting to surroundings. Jen says, I'm sorry I'm driving. Tell me something new. At least you're not driving to go buy a turkey today. That's at least that's the good part. Rose says, stay within. Okay. Comfortable with, says Juan. We're feeling maximal value. Okay. Conformity. Something conforming is something that goes along certain standards, along certain guidelines. Okay? So the word conforming means that things are within the norm, right? Within certain, again, standards or guidelines. Okay? So when we look at conformity for value, right? Let's think about it this way. This is a block, right? Road right here, and then this is a block. And we have right here, here, right? Big house again. And then we have tiny houses, right? Then we have big house again. All right. So let's assume, just for the sake of it, that this is a 1 family. This is a 4. This is a 4. This is a 2. This is a 4, and this is a 3. Let's say it like that, right? So this is a single block, and we got 1 families. Got 4, 4, 2, 4, and 3. How do we determine value? How easy do you think it is to determine value? If they're all different, how easy is it to determine value? So when we're looking at conformity, you'll notice that when you go to a single block, like anywhere you drive to, right? You go to a single block and you'll notice that most properties, if it's a 4-family area, then most properties are 4-family on that block, or 3-family, or 2, or 1. They try to conform with that standard, with the norm. They'll all be standard. They wouldn't be like this, because then it's difficult to come up with value. So the best way and the easiest way to come up with value, and we'll talk about that later, is looking for similar properties that's sold in the area, right? If there's no similar properties, right, or not enough similar properties for us to evaluate, then can somebody give me the value of the 2-family? It's the only 2-family in the area. Can somebody give me the value of the 3-family? The only three family there. The 4 units, the 4 family, maybe, because there's 3 of them. So maybe these will have a significant impact when it comes to valuation. Like if I want to figure out the value of this one, I'll compare it to these 2, right? But there's nothing else to compare for the 2 or the 3, or even the single families. So when we're talking about conformity, you notice that most properties in the area will have very, very similar structures. So they're going to have 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom houses surrounded by, sorry, hold on. Okay, sorry, I read it wrong. So the principle holds the proximal massive value is attained when its form and use are in tune with surrounding properties and uses, like I was saying. All right. So again, everything is going to conform to a standard or certain guidelines in the area. The next thing we have is progression and regression. Right? My question now is, what is this word? Progress. What does this mean? Progress. Anybody? What does the word progress mean? Better? Okay, anybody else? Progress? Nobody knows what progress means? Are you all stuck in 2020? You're like, yeah, that's the thing of the past. Progress is a thing of the past. Moving forward, okay. What time is it? Not even 11. That's the issue. Not 11 yet. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Welcome to Real Estate 101. Come on, guys, participate. What is progress? Tiana, moving forward. Riser says improving. Sonady says to go up. Sometimes. Juan says to improve. Okay. Rose says continuing. Okay. Ruth says improve. Okay. Then he says growth. All right. So to go up and growth. That's your final statement. To go up and growth. Alexis says improving in something. Okay. Progress is moving forward. Progress is improving. Yes. You can consider growth as an improvement, right? According to Jen, apparently, for me to improve, I need to get a little slimmer. I don't know. Improvement's not always growing. All right? It's getting better. Danny, thank you for joining us. What's up, man? How are you? Good evening. Yeah. So, progress, improving, getting better. Okay? Still have jet lag? Okay. If progress is improving or moving forward, right? Then what is regress? If progress is improving or moving forward, then what is regress? Anybody? Going backwards. Okay. Very good. So then it just goes like with going up or lower, like one or the other. Listen, I can go lower. If I sit down, I'm improving. If I stand up, I might I might be getting worse. It all depends. All right. So moving backwards, yes. Losing value, sure. Regress, no improvement. Yep, absolutely. It could go lower, yes. All right, so I'll agree with Sinead for a second. So what we're trying to say is very simple. Just for a second, don't get too happy about it. All right. So let's look at this. All the properties in the neighborhood, right? They're all the same, right? And these are all 2 families. It's easy. That's the conformity, right? But I decide to buy this one. So Bruno says, I'm going to buy this one. And what I'm going to do with this one, I want to have the best house neighborhood. So what I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to put roughly, let's say, $500,000 in repairs. That's how much I'm putting into it. Now, if I'm putting $500,000 in repairs, you guys would assume that the property is improving, right? Progressing, improving value, correct? Yes? Great. Here's the thing. Properties in the area, all the other properties in the area, right? I bought this one for $350, right? I bought it for $350 and I put $500. So my total cost is $850,000, right? But the properties in the area are now worth more than $400. I bought it for $350. I put $500,000 in repairs. So I spent, between the purchase and repairs, $850,000. My property is now worth $1 million, right? Is it? I put so much money into it, it has to be worth $1 million. See, what happens is, like I was saying earlier, if the property's in the wrong neighborhood, right? If the property's in the wrong neighborhood, what happens is the rest of the properties, right? They bring down the value of your property. So you spend so much money on it that it didn't contribute anything to value. It is the nicest property in the neighborhood, congratulations, right? But when you go try to sell, am I going to get my $500,000 back? Probably. But will I get my $500 plus what I paid for it, the other $350? Probably not. So this is called regress. Regress. That means that the other properties around bring back the value. Instead of moving forward or improving the value of your property, they actually bring it back. This is why we don't buy the most expensive house, and we don't put all this money into a property that's not worth in the neighborhood. Now, I ask you something. Properties in the area are worth $600,000. I bought this one for $350. It was the worst property in the best neighborhood. Think about that clearly for the rest of your lives. Okay? It was the worst property in the best neighborhood. Worst property in the best neighborhood. People in this neighborhood are constantly improving. They're maintaining and improving their property. So this person put $100,000 in repairs, so $100K. This person put also $75 in repairs, so $675. This person put $50,000, $650, and I did not do anything. I just did basic maintenance. So I put like $10K. I painted. So these are the costs, right? I just maintained the property. I just put some makeup on it. That's it, right? What happens to the value? What happens to the value of my property that I bought at discount? I bought for $350K. Is it worth $360? Worth more? Is it worth less? When you go look at comparables, how much is my property now worth? Are you guys understanding this? How it works, right? So because I bought the cheapest house in the neighborhood, all the other properties with a little bit of improvement on my property, a little bit, it was just makeup. This is called progress. My property increased in value, and it's now worth probably $450 without me doing anything. All I did was $10,000, but because everybody else improved, the area increases the value of my property. You guys got it? It's called progress. You let everybody else improve. You just maintain. And I'll tell you this because, for instance, here in the Ironbound market in Newark, there's properties that a couple of years ago they were worth $350. They're nowhere near the values of these ones, and you can tell the discrepancy, like 600s, right? They're worth 350, right? Because these improved so much, and they're selling for so much more. They're selling for 700s, for instance, right? They improved so much that now you don't find a property in the ironbound section for 350. It's impossible for you to find a two-family for 350. Even for 450 is difficult. Yes. Oh man, there you go. Sorry guys, I need to have a coffee break. Thank you very much. That's it. You gotta get a good realtor. Mario, everyone. Oh, this is the where they do the clapping for you. That's it. Okay. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right. Somebody felt I needed coffee too. Tiana? Not just you. All right. Even though I always got the energy going on for the class, but he felt like I needed it. This is the reason I stand up, by the way. If we were sitting down, the tone of the class, the way this will roll is totally different. That's why I stand the whole class. And I'm always moving, so, you know, otherwise we'd be like this. Today we're going to talk about... We don't want that. We want energy. It's already bad enough to have a class in the morning, right? All right, so, cheers. All right, Jen, you know what? Jen, you're about to, like, get fired. That's it. That's it. Jen just wrote on YouTube, I think Mario should be teaching. He seems energetic. So you want me to be slimmer and you want to substitute the teacher. Got it. All right, no problem. But don't worry, I've been asking Mario to become an instructor too, because he's that good. But eventually. Eventually. All right, so you guys understood this, right? Properties in the area here in the ironbound, they're increasing in value so much that it's impossible for you to find a two-family for 50. Even at 450, it became difficult. All the properties around increased value. Therefore, even the one that is the worst in the neighborhood increased value. Now imagine if, I don't know how much you make a year, and it doesn't matter for what I'm about to say, but have you ever tried to go to your boss and say, if you're employed, and say to your boss, hey, I'd like a $20,000 increase, all right? So you need to, you know, increase my salary 20K. Did you ever try to do that? Go to your boss and ask for it? What about 50K? What about 100K? Right? Very difficult. That's the benefit of real estate. I'm not telling you quit your jobs now, right? But what I'm telling you is that's the benefit of real estate. You bought the property for 350, a little makeup, that's it, a little splash, like painted, that's it. And then a couple of years later, right here in the ironbound, a couple of years later, this was 4 years, 5 years. You went from 350 to 450. And I'm serious. I sold a property. Here in the ironbound section about 5 years now, right? I sold a property for 465. Okay, 465. The property a year later was being evaluated on 585. That's $120,000 increase on your pay. That's the power of real estate. Am I telling you that all the increases are going to be like that? No, that's not what I'm saying. But that's the power of real estate. Over the years, it gives you way more than any job that you might have. So owning real estate, even if you don't live in it, like if it's a rental property, in this case, these are rentals, right? Even if you don't live in it, owning real estate, right, will increase your value. Because now you have borrowing power, you have equity. All right, Jen, no comment. I'm not even going to comment on that one. That's it. All right. You guys good with progress and regress? You guys good? All right. Any investing course will tell you, buy the cheapest house in the best neighborhood. I just buy the cheapest house, period. But I'm cheap. But you buy the cheapest house in the best neighborhood. That's it. And let the neighborhood increase in value. Just do a little maintenance. I mean, make it livable, please. That's it. All right. Next thing we have is assemblage. Now, assemblage is, for you guys to remember, assemblage is IKEA. You guys know what IKEA is, right? That store where you buy everything in pieces and you have to put it together, right? You have to assemble it, correct? So assemblage, when it comes to real estate, is when we have two parcels of land, okay, so adjacent properties, two parcels of land, and we're going to combine them into one. That combined value, right, that combined value is greater than the values of the unassembled properties. So if they're individual units or parcels, they will have a value, but then together they have more value, and that value is called plottage value. Plottage value. So now you have a plot of land. Instead of just a parcel of land, you have multiple parcels. So it creates a plot of land, plottage value. And the opposite of IKEA is subdivision, because IKEA is assembling it, right? And you get the plottage value. Subdivision is when we cut pieces of that bigger piece of land. So assemblage is we're combining properties, so we're assembling more properties into one, while subdivision is separating or cutting into smaller properties. Okay. All right. Next page. There's different types of real estate value. Market value. Market value is an estimate of the price that a property will sell at a particular time. Estimate. Again, estimate. It's not the actual value, is what we, in our opinion, feel that the property will sell for. This type of value is the one generally sought in appraisals and used by brokers in estimating value. There's reproduction value, which we'll talk later in the cost approach. Reproduction value is the value based on the cost of constructing a precise duplicate of the subject property improvements, assuming the current construction costs. While replacement value is the value based on the cost of construction of functional equivalents. So reproduction is a precise duplicate. Replacement is a functional equivalent. We'll talk about it better when we get to a cost approach. But the difference is, am I going to use like the manufacturer's parts? Like let's say it's a car, right? Or let's say it's a phone or whatever, or a computer. Am I going to buy the manufacturer's parts, or am I going to get aftermarket? So something that's not a brand, for instance, but it serves the same function. All right? And in real estate, back in the day, we used to build houses with copper pipes. Now we don't use copper pipes, we use PVC, right? Or PEX pipes. So these plastic pipes have the same functional value or use as the original copper pipes. So reproduction is coming up with a precise duplicate. If I were to build a house today, I would build it with the exact same construction materials that we did back then. So copper and whatever else was used for that particular house when it was built 100 years ago. Replacement is, if I were to build it today, considering the current construction material, right, and labor costs and all that stuff, how much is it going to cost me? Probably less, because we're replacing with something that's used today and it's cheaper and way easier to install. Again, plumbing is the best example I can give you. Copper, expensive, and you have to solder. You have to have somebody that knows what they're doing, right? Plumbing nowadays, and no disregard for plumbers, but plumbing nowadays it's like plumbing for dummies. They even color code those things, right? And all you have to do is plug them, a little bit of glue maybe, depending on what you're trying to do, a little bit of glue, and boom, ready to go. Others is a coupling, is literally just plug and play, ready to go, right? So again, not talking bad about plumbing, I'm just showing you the changes from what it was before, what it is now, okay? Hold on. Jen, when a builder sells multiple lots, Does the first few houses sell cheaper, or do they sell at the same price? So that's based on demand, right? So usually the first few houses will sell cheaper. In fact, they'll advertise what's called pre-construction prices. So even without building, they're already selling the property at $100,000. And then when there's only 2 units left, let's say, they're already selling it at $150,000, they're $200,000, or even $300,000, depending on the demand. So if the builder sells multiple lots, the first few houses should be cheaper than the last ones. Again, demand, right? There's a lot of them available, things are cheaper. Supply, demand. All right, salvage value. Salvage value refers to a nominal value of a property that has reached the end of its economic life. Salvage value is also an estimate of the price at which the structure will sell if it's dismantled and moved. So it's just like your cars. If your car becomes a total loss, as an example, total loss, that means they've reached their life. Like there's nothing else you can do with it. This is the value that they gave. Salvage value is the same thing for the property. They reached their life, economic value. There's nothing else you can do to it. It's not worth fixing it right now, or just done, right? So think of it as a total loss. If we were to dismantle it and take for parts, for instance, or use it for something else, right, or rebuild, what would be the value of that property? That's a salvage value. All right. Plottage value. We already talked about it. Plottage means that there's more than one parcel that we combine into one, and it gives a higher value to the land. Assessed values for tax purposes, so we will talk about that later, but assessed values for taxes. Condemned value is where the government says, hey, I want your property because I need to put a school here. And I'm going to knock on your neighbors' houses too. They need to go. I want your property. So the government takes over your property through eminent domain. They take over your property. They'll pay you something. That value that they're going to give you, or fair compensation they're going to give you, it's called condemned value. Okay. Depreciated value. Well, depreciation is a loss of value over time, right? So depreciated value is how much is it worth now, okay, based on loss of value. So you subtract depreciation, and we'll talk about that better in investments, chapter 18. Reversionary value. So if you guys remember from the first chapters, I'm going to sell the property to you, right? As long as you use it for hospital purposes. I'm going to sell the property to you as long as you're alive, right? So eventually, if you screw up and you change the hospital purposes to something else, eventually the property can revert back to me, right? How much is it going to be worth in the future, right? That's reversionary value, is what the property will be worth in the future when it comes back to me. Or when you die, the property was yours as long as you're alive. So when it reverts back to me, does it have the same value as when I sold it to you? No. Reversionary value is the property came back to me, and what is that future value? Okay. Appraised value, again, it's an appraiser's opinion. Remember I said that? Opinion of property value. Everything is opinion, but opinion of property value. Rental value. It's an estimate of the rental rate the property can command for a specific period of time. Leasehold value is an estimate of market value of a lessee's interest in a property. Insured value, obviously it's what the insurances will insure, usually like 80% of the actual value. Okay. All right, book value is the value of the property as carried out on the account of the owner. So book value generally is equal to the acquisition price plus improvements minus depreciations. Okay. We also call this the adjusted basis. And then mortgage value. This is the value that the property will serve as collateral for the loan. Give me a thumbs up if you're good so far. Quick definitions, that's what we did. All right, great. So appraisals could be done for different types of values. All right, so appraising market value. As I said right in the beginning, Market value is an opinion of the price. Again, opinion of the price that a willing seller and a willing buyer would probably agree for a property at a given time, right? So again, opinion of the price. It's not the actual price or value. It's an opinion. But how do we determine what's the market value? Well, we're going to assume, right, the best value is if it's cash transaction, right, not financed. The property is exposed on the open market for a reasonable period. That means it was listed today and it stayed on the market for a couple of days before we decided to accept offers, right? Which doesn't happen that often, right? People nowadays is like, it's on the market today, it's under contract tomorrow. Doesn't make sense to me that people accept the very first offer that comes through, but you know, it is what it is. Now, buyer and seller have full information about market conditions and about potential uses. There's no abnormal pressure on either party, so that we're not being forced into the transaction. The buyer and seller are not related. They're not related, so there's an arm's length transaction. All right? So we call these relative strangers. And when we say relative, is because you could have an acquaintance, right? An acquaintance is not somebody that I'm going to say, no offense, like Alexis, for instance. We're acquainted, right? We're not like best buddies. So we're acquainted. You don't have to say no. It's just an example, okay? Tough day today. All right. So acquaintance, right? So the point is, I even lost my train of thought. He just went like, no, we're not friends at all. I'm like, okay, cool. Next time you come to the office, I'll remember that. Shows up after a whole month of buying the course. Shows up after a whole month. Hey, I bought the course like way back when, and then I couldn't do it. Can I come back to class? And I said, only if you're my best friend. That's what I said. Like when he comes to the class and I asked you this, you got to say you're my best friend. And he just went against that. Terrible. Anyway. Anyway. What do you guys think? I forget stuff? Come on, Alexis. I don't forget anything. Wait until I see Jonathan. Anyway. So, Alexis, we're not best friends. We're acquaintances. I know you. You know me. We've met here. And that's it, right? That's as much as we got, right? So if I have property that I'm selling, and it's a property that you want to buy, Alexis, if it's a property you want to buy, right? Am I going to say, hey, I know you, so let me drop the price a little bit because I know you. You've been to my office once, right? Or you've been in my class. Am I going to drop the price because of that? No. You're going to fight for yourself, and I'm going to fight for myself. That means arm's length transaction. Like, I like you and all. You seem to be a great guy, but you stay right there. Arm's length transaction. You stay right there. Now, if we were best buddies, things would be different. If we're family, things would be different. I'll charge more, right? That's it. All right, the point is, arm's length transaction is usually there's an influence because of that relationship. That's what we're getting at. Arm's length transaction, usually there's an influence because of the relationship. So to have the best property value, everybody's working to do its best for them. That means, again, you fight for yourself, I fight for myself. That's it. I'm going to ask for the highest price, you're going to ask for the lowest price. Right? Also, the title is marketable and conveyable by the seller. That means easily transferred. And then the price is normal consideration, and that is does not include hidden influences such as special financing deals, concessions, terms, services, fees, credits, costs, or other types of considerations. So the most probable market value that the property will bring is based on freedom and understanding of the negotiation. Does that make sense? Right? That's the best market value. So let me ask you something. If I'm moving from Florida, as an example, and I'm moving to New Jersey, right, and I have to start my job tomorrow, and I'm trying to find a house over the week. I mean, I have to start on Monday, and I'm trying to find a house over the rest of the week. You think I'm looking at properties with seeing eyes, or I'm just desperate and I just need to get something because I need to start on Monday, right? I'm desperate. Is that the best value of the property? Did I determine that to be the best value? Did I negotiate what was best for me? Or was I rushed into something? In the same way, if a seller is losing their home, if they're going through a divorce, if they're relocating, whatever the situation might be, if they're under pressure by the realtor, which happens a lot of times, hey, take this offer. This is the best offer. It got to be the best offer. Take it, right? Sometimes realtors do this to sellers because they care about the commission, not about the client, right? They want to close now. So is that the best value of the property? These are the things to consider. All right. Another way of describing market value is that it's the highest price that a buyer would pay and the lowest price that the seller would accept for the property. That's market value. The highest price that a buyer would pay and the lowest that a seller would accept. So right now, current market here in the Ironbound, not everywhere, but Ironbound for instance, current market, if I ask for $1 million for my house, there's going to be a couple of people that would show up and say, hey, yeah, I think $1 million is close to the right price, right? Other people will be like, not $1 million, but 950, 900. Everybody determines whatever is the highest that they'll pay for a particular property. Doesn't mean I have to accept that, whatever you're offering, okay? So market price as opposed to market value is what the property actually sells for. Market value is what we estimate the property to be worth, right? Market price, what it actually sold for. You guys remember when I told you about Kohl's? You have the $100 shirt and then you have the $50 shirt, right? There are buyers that will pay at full price. There are buyers that will pay a discount, right? No matter what I paid for it is the price. Not the value, but is the price. Just like the example I gave you guys before, I bought that two-family for $350,000, right? I didn't do much to it, and it increased in value almost $100,000, right? So I bought it at a discount. That's what I'm willing to pay for a property. Never full value or over the value. Unless it's something I know that it's really developing, like a couple of years ago, Jersey City, Newark, obviously, Harrison, Kearney. If you had bought property in these areas, right? It's almost like getting into Bitcoin in 2009 or 10 or whatever it was, right? Right in the beginning. If you knew the development, what was going to happen, right? Then you have a whole lot of equity or value in it. Simple. So price is what I pay for, not what it's worth, right? It's what I pay for, okay? Now, while most appraisals seek to estimate market value, any of the types of value described earlier may be the objective or the goal of an appraisal. An appraisal is distinguished from other estimates of value in that it's an opinion of value that it's supported by data and performed by professional, disinterested, third party. Why does an appraisal have more weight than our estimates of value? Because the majority of the times we either represent the seller or we represent the buyer. Where the appraisal, right, the appraiser does not represent either one. They're just doing whatever their job is. All right? You guys understand that? If there's bias in this appraisal or this estimate of value, if there's bias to it, then is that the best value? That's the question here. Okay. Now there's something called broker's opinion of value. Now this BOV is also known as BPO. Okay? It's also known as broker's price opinion. Okay? So these are exactly the same. If you see broker's opinion of value, if you see broker's price opinion, it's the same thing. Here in the state of New Jersey, for instance, we only say broker's price opinion, BPOs. That's what we talk about. But it's the same thing. Broker's price opinion or broker's opinion of value, same thing. If you ever see it, same thing. It's very similar to an appraisal, right? The BPO or the BOV is very similar to an appraisal. But it differs from an appraisal in that it's not necessarily performed by a disinterested third party. or a licensed professional. And it generally uses only a limited form of one of the three appraisal approaches. In addition, the opinion is not subject to regulations, nor does it follow any particular professional standards. So a broker's price opinion is our estimate of value, right? And usually it could be a disinterested third party. You guys can make some money with this. You can make anywhere between $75 to $250 a pop. All right, so if you do BPOs or BOVs as an extra cash, you can do it, right? You're providing a service. It's an independent service. You don't have to represent the seller or represent the buyer. For instance, a few years ago, I was making roughly around $250 per BPO or BOV, right? $250 for an attorney, and he was a bankruptcy and divorce attorney. So every time there was a divorce and they needed to dispute the values, I would give my opinion a value, right? And boom, $250. If it was a bankruptcy, lenders need to know what the value was. Well, I would give my opinion, and boom, $250. Right? On average, it's like anywhere between 150 to 100, but sometimes we got 250, depending on where you're doing. So we can do this independently, right? That's why it says it's not always a disinterested third party. There are services, independent services. All right, Jen is asking, when selling your house, how many broker's opinions should we get? That's different. Broker's opinion value usually is not given to the consumer. The CMAs is given to the consumer. The BPOs or BOVs are usually given to lenders. Usually, that's how it works. But if you're doing a CMA, comparable market analysis, how many should you get, Jen? It depends. If you're getting mine, that's all you need. That's it. Now, it depends. Like, how comfortable are you with the numbers? Some realtors are great at what they do in estimating value. Others suck. But it's just the way it is. Just like there's a lot of attorneys that are great at what they do, and others suck. So you should always get at least 2 or 3 opinions before moving forward. Just like with everything else. Like when you interview brokers, get 2 or 3 opinions. Again, go figure out what's out there. And there might be different opinions of value. Simple. Jen, I'm not sure. Jen says, I'll make sure I call you. I don't know. After all those comments, I'm not sure if I would answer or even help you. Same. Anyway, all right. Moving forward, steps in the appraisal process. The steps in the appraisal process. For you to appraise something, the first thing you have to do, and guys, these steps are so simple. Identify the purpose. What is identifying the purpose? What are you doing this for? Right? Is it for a family that's going through a divorce? Is it for probate? Is it for a lender? Is it for insurance purposes? What is it for? Is it for taxation? Right? What is it for? Then we're going to assimilate relevant data, right? Assess the highest and best use. Estimate the value of the land. Apply the 3 approaches to estimating value. Reconcile the values from the approaches and compile a report. So after we do all this, we're now going to reconcile or put all the values together and do a summary, a report of it, and then a summary of our findings. What do we believe that the value is based on these approved methods? So purpose again, why did we do this? Data, I'm going to skip all this because we just talked about it. Highest and best use, land value. The 3 approaches we're going to talk about later. Reconcile is putting all the things together and file the report. So we're going to start with sales comparison approach. These are the 3 approaches to value: sales comparison approach, cost approach, and income approach. In the sales comparison approach, this is also known as market data approach. Now, why is it called market data approach? Because we're going to pull whatever we find of sales, right? Whether they sold or they did not sell, they're expired, whatever it is, right? Or currently for sale. So we're going to look at those. If it's an appraisal, they don't consider things that expired, they consider what's sold, right? So the steps for the sales comparison approach, which is the one that we do the most, also known for broker's opinion of value, right? The sales comparison approach is we're going to look at properties, which we call them comparable properties, right? So the sales comparison approach is the CMA, right? Not Country Music Awards, it's comparable market analysis, okay? CMA. And on the next page, it says the comparison approach consists of comparing sales prices of recently sold properties. Recently sold properties. I don't dwell too much on this one because it's easy to go through. The income approach is the one where we're going to spend the most time. So steps for sales comparison approach. Very simple. Only 3 steps here. Very simple. Identify the comparable sales. What does that mean? If my property is a single family, I'm going to look for other single families. Right? If my property has 3 bedroom, I'm going to look for properties, single families that have 3 bedroom. If my property has 2 bath, I'm going to look for single families, 3 bedroom with 2 bath. Am I always going to find exact duplicates of this property? Am I always going to find them? Probably not. So sometimes we need to make adjustments to the comparables, right? So my property has 3 bedroom, 2 bath, but then the only comparables I get is 3 bedroom, 1 bath. So I need to adjust for that difference. My property does not have a garage, but one of those properties does. So we need to adjust for that difference. We're going to weigh the values indicated by the adjusted comparables to figure out the final estimate of the subject. So again, to qualify as a comparable, it must have very similar size, shape, design, utility, and location, right? Must have been sold recently, usually within 6 months of the appraisal, and has to have been sold at an arm's length transaction. That means you fight for yourself, I fight for myself. You lower the price, I raise the price until we reach an agreement, right? That's those counters. All right. I'm going to skip all this right here. Arm's length we just covered as well, the distance. Right here, adding or deducting value. So the appraiser adjusts the sales prices of the comparables to account for the differences with the subject property. And note that the sales price of the comparables are known while the value and price of the subject are not. Therefore, adjustments can only be made to the comparable prices, not to the subjects. Adjustments are made to the comparables in the form of value deduction or value addition. So adding or deducting value. If the comparable is better than the subject property, so my property in some characteristics, an amount is deducted from the sale price of the comparable. This pretty much neutralizes the comparable's competitive advantage in an adjustment category. Now, adjustment criteria. These two are the most important. Adjustment criteria. And the CMA be challenging to make. Lost you on that one. Are you asking if you can challenge a CMA and say that's incorrect? Is that what you're asking, Jen? All right, so these two for me are the most important when doing comps. The first one is time of sale. Doesn't matter what property you have. Am I going to compare a property I'm trying to sell today with a property that sold 10 years ago? Yes, no, maybe? Would you compare a property you're trying to sell today with one that sold 10 years ago? No. How about one that sold 5 years ago? 3 years ago? 2? 1? No? All right. It wouldn't make sense because of the cycle, guys. The cycle that we spoke about, the changes, the ups and downs. Yesterday we talked about it, the ups and downs of the market. Property changes values over time. So, as far as time of sale, you want to be as close to the property date as possible. So if you're trying to sell something today, you want to be as close as possible. So usually, you want to be within 90 to 180 days. Now, this is not for state exam. This is for you, for your practice. But in hot markets, like Ironbound section of Newark, like Jersey City, right? In hot markets, 90 days is more than enough for you to find enough comparables. You can expand, go to 180 days max, right? That's it. Try to be within 6 months, no more than that. The other thing is location. My property is located in Newark. Should I compare this to a property that's located in Atlantic City? It doesn't make sense, right? Because it's different markets. So you want to be ideally, you want to be within half mile to 1 mile radius. Half mile to 1 mile radius. So the criteria is simple. You're going to look for 90 days, half mile. If you don't find anything within half mile, you expand to 1 mile. If you don't find anything there, then you expand to 180 days. And you should have comparables. If not, there's other strategies for you to figure out comparables. But location, let's address that as well. Location, you got to be careful that you're still in the same neighborhood. Right? Because half mile radius, this is the property. Half mile radius, if your property is on the border, almost, between two towns, half mile radius, you're going to be in a different town. Right? So, let's say Newark, and this is Elizabeth. Can I use Elizabeth as comparables? I cannot. Different market altogether. Elizabeth is different market, so property values are different in Elizabeth. In fact, so this is the border with Elizabeth, right? And then within half mile radius, we have something else. This is South Newark. This is the Ironbound section as an example. Do you think Ironbound and South Newark have the same value? This is what I was trying to address. Even neighborhoods will change value, right? And I'm not talking anything regarding the population. I'm talking about demands. Again, supply and demand. The Ironbound section usually, and the central ports, are the most desirable because they're close to transportation, close to commerce, definitely close to New York. So the values go up. And this is why it's important for you to know which market you're in. Right? Sometimes within the same municipality, different markets. All right? So values change. This property here is worth $300,000. If this property were here, it'll be worth $600,000 as an example. If it was here, it'll be worth $450,000 as an example. Right? So can we use these comparables? No. Got to be within the same neighborhood. So we're going to look for properties. This property, that property right there are within the same neighborhood. We cannot go beyond. So half mile radius, 1 mile radius, you could already be in a different market altogether. All right? And then the next ones, they're easy. It's like I said, if it's a single family, you compare it to a single family. If it's a two family, compare it to a two family. 3 bedroom compared to 3, 4 compared to 4, and so on. So it's the closest physical characteristics. That's what you're going to look for. And finally, transaction characteristics. Was it cash? Financed? Was it a family transfer? Right? You need to know these things from the comparables to make sure that it was the true value. All right? All right, we're gonna finish with this, and then we go take a quick break, get to the cost approach after and the income approach after. So I'll do both right after. All right, so we're on page 228. We already talked about this. What we do as brokers or salespeople, what we do is the CMAs or comparative market analysis. That's what we do, right? And we got to be careful, as it says here, very important. We have to be careful, exercise caution when presenting a CMA, because we cannot say, hey, here's an appraisal, or advertise a free appraisal, because we are not appraisers. Got it? So when we advertise a free valuation of somebody's property, we need to explain also this is not equivalent to a certified appraiser. Okay? Thumbs up. Okay. This is just a quick example. So these are subject properties. So this is the subject property that we're trying to figure out the value. We have comparable A, B, C, and D. Gives you all the details, but then it summarizes right here. Boom. So the property we're trying to sell has no value. That's what we're trying to determine. Property A sold for $1 million. Property B 1.2, property C 1.15, and property D 1.09. All right. So that's what they sold for. Financing terms were standard, so let's say conventional or FHA, whatever. The sale date, this one is what we're trying to do now. When it says equal, that means it's recent, it's within that 6-month period. That's why it says equal. Location, equal. That means it's in the same location. But whoa, wait. What happened to this one? It's in a different neighborhood. You guys understand? So we have to track the value. This is in the better neighborhood. So it detracts the value to ours because we don't know the value of ours yet. So we take 20,000 there. Age. When was the property built? So equal. Ours was built, it was more recent than this one. So minus $12,000 for this one. Plus $10,000 for this one. Lot size, site view, design, appeal, construction quality, condition, number of rooms, number of baths, gross living area, other space, garage, and so on. So a lot of details that we're going to compare to. And then we figured out the net adjustments. So this one, right, our property is better than this one, so it's plus 45, minus 144 right there, and plus 35 right there. So this is the only one that's more or less equivalent. After these adjustments, we have different values, right? The average of these values is 1.12. That's the value of our property, right? Now, I wouldn't get too concerned about this right now. This is just for you to have an understanding how things work. They might need to adjust. If they ask for adjustments, they'll give you those values in the exam. What you need to remember is that this stuff you'll learn along the way when you put it in practice, right? And we are not certified appraisers, but we need to know how to calculate estimates of value, CMAs. So your broker should be able to teach you how to do these things, right? Estimating value, okay? Sam, you're good? All right. That is it. We're going to go into a break, and then we get into the cost approach and income approach. Ruth says, I like this. Okay, cool. You like what, the break? All right, guys. So it's now 11:40. I'm going to give you guys 15 minutes because I need you to be fully awake for the next one. That's where I'm going to spend a lot of time. It's not many more pages to go. I'm going to spend a lot of time there. So 15 minutes, go get some coffee, whatever it is, tea, whatever it is to wake you up. Do it and be fully alert. All right? We'll be back 11:55. See you in a bit.